But as I picture this in my mind's eye, and you've got this beautiful, uplifting, enticing, alluring, encouraging, peaceful, come on, out you come.
Hello and welcome to Sacred Book, in which two old Navy fellas talk proper long time about the Bible. And I've got the cold.
You're doing well though, mate. The Barry White look is going well for you, man.
I do look like a walrus. Finally, Noah and the flood. The waters have receded. This is a major epochal event, isn't it?
Absolutely. Plug has been pulled, mate. Bath is draining.
Literally. Last episode, we came to a decision that the dates are a bit vague. It's because it's Smitho history. If God has spoken, it's da-da, when God went through Eden like a storm. Everyone would have heard that one. And God spoke unto Noah. This was a personal thing, not unto those on the ark. This one is quiet. How would that have happened? In his head? External?
Dabar is the Hebrew word. That's how he would have spoken to him. If you dabar with somebody, you speak to them, you converse with them, you parley with them. We're not told how he spoke with him, whether it was a voice out of the ether somewhere, whether it was God turning up and speaking to him face to face. What we do know is that it was the name of God, which is Elohim. It wasn't Yahweh, which is plural. It was that composite unity telling him what he needs to do. Whether that's significant, I don't know. There is a different connotation with the way that God spoke at the beginning of creation to the way that God spoke to Noah post-flood. Why? At the beginning where it says God said this and God said that, this is like uttering something out, to say what's in one's heart, to command, to promise. But that's not what we're seeing with him speaking to Noah. So all the way through, so far, what I can see is God Amarin, and it's the Lord God, so it's Yahweh Elohim. So there's a difference in the way that he is speaking to Noah in terms of the strength of it.
There's definitely a tonal shift here, isn't there?
Oh, this is nice, Mark. I've only just seen this. I'm going to read it to you in a way that this word, dabar, could be used. Then God sung unto Noah, saying, come out of the ark.
Is that elsewhere where God sings to somebody?
No, but everything sings unto God. Creation sings to God.
That's the first time I've ever had the idea that God would sing.
That's really fascinating. If I've got this right, and I think I have, that is the first time that dabar is used in the Bible, in the Tanakh. And the first mention of something holds significance. But it's a principle of first mention. It sets something up. That's the word that's then used for lots of other things in the Old Testament, in Exodus, Isaiah, Leviticus. Speaking to Moses, it's all dabar. But it's the first time that I've noticed that the word dabar can actually mean sing.
If God's singing, we have to assume it's a religious type song, if it is a song or a lyric. Is it soothing words?
If I'm using my imagination here and I'm actually closing my eyes and thinking about this, the waters have dried up, Noah is there and he knows that he's been stuck in there for 376 days. So just picture this. He's surrounded by forbidden chaos in the ark, whatever that looks like, and he's about to have to step out onto dry ground. One of the ways that you encourage people to step into anything is to sing to them. You sing a child to sleep. Why? Because it brings rest on them. It brings peace. It brings calm. It says everything's going to be all right. I love the imagery here that God is singing to Noah. And what's he singing? Verse 16. Go forth from the ark. Go forth from the ark. Thou and thy wife and your sons wives with thee. The whole gamut of family. It's the first time husband and wife are mentioned together, and now he's allowing them to resume their family life. And just imagine that, just the poetry of it. Again, speculative, but as I picture this in my mind's eye, and you've got this beautiful, uplifting, enticing, alluring, encouraging, peaceful. Come on, out you come. What a nice imagery.
The chaos in the ark. There's a tendency to think all the animals were well behaved. They were just resting on the waters, waiting for the waters to disappear. I think the key, or the clue, is verse 17. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee. I'm assuming, and there must be dead animals already. They didn't survive. Noah and his family would be exhausted. They would possibly have got to the point in times of, I wouldn't say losing hope, but questioning whether they're going to survive, despite the fact they did everything God wanted. And if it is a case that God is now singing, come out, onto the earth, that tonal shift works. It works really well and makes sense.
The song then continues all the way through from verse 16, covering Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives, going into all of the living creatures as you've just touched on, everything that was with them. The song continues all the way, covering everything. Once again, the song of God over all of creation. It's beautiful imagery, and I've never noticed that. We were only talking last time that we spoke about, I've read through the Bible gazillions of times, and this is now another thing. It just adds another colour to it. It adds another shade to it. It adds another beautiful piece of the tapestry. I've never thought about God singing to Noah before, but why not?
The going out of the ark takes up almost 2 verses. Now, because of the length and the repetition here, I would imagine then to the listener, or certainly to the intent of the writer, is that this was a major event. You don't say this over 2 verses if it's just a thing that happened. And if you read it, it's all flesh, both fowl and cattle, every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, that may swarm in the earth and be fruitful. And Noah went forth, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him, every beast, every creeping thing, and every fowl, whatsoever moveth upon the earth, and after their families. It's a long, long exposition of movement, and I could just imagine what that would have been like onto an earth just come out of this massive flood.
And the way that the verses are structured, in verse 16, God is singing, I like that, about Noah and his wife. In verse 17, God is singing about the animals. In verse 18, Noah and his wife are following through. In verse 19, the animals are following through. So you're getting the structural singing of God, and then you'll get the following through of what he said. I'd be really interested for somebody who is a very good Hebrew speaker to sing this and to see how it sounds.
Very powerful. As an aside, and it's got nothing to do with this, I'm not saying this is a lament. I've only ever heard a lament once in Auschwitz, where a school party went into first Auschwitz, the one with Arbeit macht frei, and they went into the gas chamber, and they did a lament in the gas chamber where so many died. There was only about 15, 16 of them, and the rest of us waited outside, and we were awestruck. Some languages are very resonant when they are sung. You get that in English. You certainly get it in Hebrew. You're absolutely right, but lovely to hear it sung.
So that word dabar comes from a root word, which also means to commune. What we're seeing being played out is once again recreation on a global scale, and we'll argue about whether it was or whether it wasn't, but let's just say global scale. And you're looking at God calling out all of that living back onto the land to do what it's supposed to do. And then you're looking at God once again wanting to commune with the people. Just within that little word of spoke, you're getting some of that sense that there's far more to it.
I don't think we can underestimate the tonal shifts. Some of the greatest writers in literature will give you light, then dark, then light. And it's that continual shift that makes the literature stand out. The reason I say that is because we have gone from raven went out, didn't come back. The dove went out, came back. Water's going. Then the singing. Finally, it's out of the ark. They've survived. Can you imagine that? And then, I'm going slightly ahead here, all the effort, all that work to save those animals. Well, obviously, some may have died. And then it goes on to, and Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and of every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Part of the sacrificial system. Some were kept just for that. First fruits. And the Lord smelled the sweet savour. And the Lord said in his heart, I will not again curse the ground any more. It's just this continual flow of, rather than bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, it's a lot more nuanced than that.
We're back in a different way that God speaks then as well. So it's in that particular section where God debars, and then it's back into Amar. There's just something there. I'm going to go with that. That works for me in my imagination. It just speaks of the love of God as well.
When you read this, it's showing you quite clearly, if we do accept that God is singing, that God's not hard-faced and remote. You don't sing a lullaby or a song to somebody if you don't have a loving side to you. You can't always be aggressive and remote, which is what a lot of atheists would say is the God of the Old Testament. There's a different side to God here that you may not know. In English, it's not necessarily there. Until you looked up the actual possible meaning of a word, never really linked it. So the way in which God is perceived by the ancients isn't what a lot of people think it is today.
No, not at all. Augustine, one of the early church fathers, talking about the New and the Old Testament, which you just touched on, he says that the new is in the old concealed and the old is in the new revealed. They are a complete thing, which is why Jesus talks about the volume of the book being written about him. And when he's talking about the book, he didn't have a New Testament. He's talking about the Tanakh. He's saying the volume of the Tanakh is written about me. I could imagine Jesus sitting there with children and singing songs of the Israelite past, the great stories, singing the Psalms. The Psalms are all songs. The biggest chunk of writing in the scriptures are hymns to be sung. So to think that God doesn't sing is just bonkers. In fact, everything gives off sound. Everything resonates. Everything has a frequency, right? Which you can pick up if you have the right equipment. Well, God has got the right equipment. And so that means that God is surrounded by a cacophony of sound. And it says that his creation sings to him. So the stars spinning on their revolutions, the whales going under the water, the dolphins clicking, the shrimp snapping, all of these things, everything that has a sound is resonating and is like an orchestra singing to God. That's the way I see creation. Beautiful symphony which is constantly playing to the God of the universe.
Finally, the flood is over.
They're on dry land. They're all heading out. What could go wrong?
Absolutely. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Where it all goes belly up.
Yeah. I'll bring my wine with me.
I'll bring mine as well. All right, fella. You take care.
Take care.
Bye.